I was trying to drive home. Couldn't make it. I pulled over into the parking lot of a building on the river, in the Miami River. And I just parked the car and I started crying. I grabbed my gun and I was really going to commit suicide.
Well, I know a lot of you. A lot of people don't. And I feel like there's so much of you that the world needs to know. The child, David the child. Did he always want to be an entrepreneur?
No. So I didn't necessarily fit in my neighborhood, and that was a constant battle. Being able to prove that I belonged to a neighborhood that didn't want me. And I knew I wanted to make money. I didn't want to be broke. I didn't want to be on welfare. I didn't want to stand on the cheese line. I didn't want my kids to have to go through that. I got into a little fight. I woke up in the hospital with boot prints in my face and my head.
Did you want to go to the military? How did you end up there? What prompted you to go to the military?
Necessity. I got caught and I got locked up for a weekend and whatever. There was food in the jail, so we had nothing. We had a couch, no chairs, no dining table. We barely had Pampers for the baby. Every penny went to the baby. We had a mattress on the floor.
Welcome to the David Adam Kurz Show.
Welcome. Today, I am going to be interviewing David Adam Kurz. This is a segment interview with Jen that you're going to find at Jen's on the Reel. And we're doing a collaboration with David Adam Kurz today, his podcast. And I'm actually a little nervous and excited. I don't know if you noticed. But we're going to dive in a little deeper on who is David Kurz, why is David Kurz, and we're hoping to provide you with a more honest and genuine approach at an individual that is an entrepreneur, an author, a son, a parent, a husband, and how are you feeling? I'm going to segue this.
I think it's important for people to know that I have no idea what's going to be asked in this interview. And so this is completely unscripted. This is, I was invited for a deep dive and I'm trusting that I won't get thrown into the sharks here. So
I can't promise
I'm a little
anything.
nervous. I'm a little nervous. I can say that. I'm a little nervous. I think if you know me, I'm not one to open up to the world. So, I carry a lot of my own weight by myself. And it's going to be an interesting hour, I should say.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of you. And a lot of people don't. And I feel like there's so much of you that the world needs to know because it can help the world. And, your biggest motto is to help the world. And therefore, let's do that, but let's do that vulnerably. So I want to ask you, who is David? But not who is David, the entrepreneur, the person behind the scenes.
Maybe a loaded question, right?
Okay.
I don't know that I am anything specific, so to say. And I also think that throughout my life, I've lived a lot of different roles, probably more than I would have wanted to, and played a lot of different positions and have held different jobs and titles and, so forth and so on. So, David behind the scenes is a much more relaxed, I think, calmer person who actually I thrive. I thrive from being around you, around my kids. I thrive being home. I thrive in those places. Even sometimes I think to myself that there are work days where I'm dude, I just kind of want to stay home. Home is home, and it's I thank God I've earned that privilege. And I have that opportunity to do that, and I can stay home if I wanted to. Obviously, I can't do it every day because then, there'd be no business to run. But
that could be a struggle.
But I think I'm I care about people. I care about my environment. But I think now, at my age, which, you know, I just turned 49 years old. I'm almost like half a century year old, right? And so uh, I think at this age, you know, you start to realize and recognize a lot of stuff and really what's important in life. And I get my energy from seeing my kids thrive and seeing you thrive and seeing what we've built together. Like, that's where my energy's at, you know? I
Okay.
like a good scotch. I like a good cigar. Um, I like to chill, you know?
Yeah. I want to
Uh,
touch on, so this is who you are at the moment. I want to go back in time and I want to touch on the child, David the child.
what about that guy?
Did did he always want to be an entrepreneur?
No, I didn't know what being an entrepreneur meant. Um, my upbringing, thankfully, because I had a very strong mom, I had a strong household. But I grew up in the Bronx. You know, I grew up in what you would consider to be the hood. Um, and the majority of my neighborhood was Latinos, who were Puerto Ricans and Dominicans for the most part in my area. And that's how I grew up. And when you grow up like that, the choices don't seem tangible, you know? You know, there's plenty of drugs going around. You know, there's plenty of hanging out happening. You know, thankfully, I don't think me or any of the guys in my building that I grew up with ended up down those roads, you know?
What did you end up doing? Like,
Um,
who were you then?
you know, I used to hang out with my friends a lot, honestly, like in the Bronx. Let's just talk the Bronx in general, because we ended up leaving the Bronx when I was in my last year of junior high school. I was about to head into high school. And I just hung out with my friends in the building. My mom was really strict, you know, so there was no street life. You know, I didn't like I had to fend for myself on the streets the way I was taught. Um, I grew up with a stepfather, but I can't say he was a super father figure in the sense that he would like teach me how to, you know, handle the streets. I learned that on my own. Um, you know, so those struggles were for me to earn on my own. And, you know, in my childhood, in those days, you know, we used to walk far to school and take trains and buses by ourselves. And occasionally you ran into problems. Somebody wanted to steal your sneakers, somebody wanted to steal your hat, you know, so you had to be different people all the time. You know, I was one kid when I was home. I was another kid when I was at a friend's house. I was another kid when I played outside.
Did you feel
Um,
different? Did you feel like you belonged in that neighborhood?
no, uh, for a multitude of reasons, I think. Um, my mom was a school teacher, so my mom was educated. Most of the parents weren't, and a lot of blue collar workers, you know, and and low income workers. And you know, my mom was a teacher, so she was educated, but she was a low income worker, you know. But I'm very white, as you can see, and so I didn't necessarily fit in my neighborhood, you know, and that was a constant battle, you know, being able to prove that I belonged to a neighborhood that didn't want me. Um, and the only people I really knew, and this kind of goes for anybody, you know, if you grew up in the Bronx or Brooklyn or whatever, you know the people on your block,
Yeah.
you know, and you know the people at school. That's about it. Like, you know, that's enough people, by the way. Like, you don't need to go to multiple blocks to have multiple friends. Like, you got your people on your block, and that's who you look out for. And, you know, blocks were sacred, you know, like if somebody weird was walking down your block, you'd be looking at them like, who's this, you know?
That's interesting. It's a completely different concept to, I would say, how even I grew up. You know, I was more in like the suburbs, you know, so I cannot even imagine having to stick around in a specific block and be afraid of kind of like of being out. Sometimes I was pretty free, you know.
Yeah.
What was your dream back then? What did you
What do you
dream of?
mean?
Like, who did young David dream to be?
So knowing that we didn't have a lot of options, but I knew that I always knew that I wanted out, and I knew I wanted to make money. I didn't want to be broke. I didn't want to be on welfare. I didn't want to stand on the cheese line. I didn't, you know, I didn't want my kids to have to go through that. I also didn't want, like I thought about this very early on. I didn't want to have a family in that environment. I hated it, so why would I put my kids through that, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew I wanted to do something bigger and better. The one thing that really stuck out for me was to be an attorney. I wanted to be an attorney, you know. But that's what you see, like you don't really see other opportunities. You see attorneys, doctors, right? Like, you know, you don't know that business owners actually make money, because only business owners I really knew was El Carnicero and, like, you know, the
small
vegetable
shops.
guy and all the small shops that we used to have back in the day, you know, and I'm sure they made decent money, but I didn't equate it that way. Like, I looked at them as if they worked for somebody else, or
Yeah.
it was a bigger conglomerate, but all these people were hustling their own shops. And so the way the brain operated back then was making money meant, you know, going to school and becoming an attorney or becoming a doctor or something like that. And I think I may have mentioned once to my mom that I was going to grow up to be an attorney, and that like stuck with her. And she always used to say, "My son's going to be an attorney. My son's going to be an attorney." And
How come you
I guess the
didn't?
path was,
How come you didn't become an attorney?
you know, it was a series of events, a series of events that kind of became like the domino fall. You know, my mom and my stepfather divorced when I was headed into 8th grade. I believe it was 8th grade, 8th or 9th, I can't remember. At that time, I was at a higher end public school. So my mom was a teacher, so she could pick what school in the Bronx she wanted to put me in. And so I went to a school called Riverdale Junior High School 141.
Okay.
It was in a prominent Jewish neighborhood. You know, it was a good school, you know. And she didn't let me go to the
Was it
school right
close
up the
to-
street, or she didn't
Oh,
let
okay,
me.
I was just
No,
gonna
it was not close. Like, to get to junior high school 141, I used to take a train and 2 buses to get there. Like, and
That's a lot.
I hated that.
How old were
right?
you?
I mean, how old are you when you're an 8th grader? You know, 14, 15, something like that. Or
Yeah,
even lower,
like
you know,
13,
probably
I
12,
think.
13, something
Yeah.
like that. And my last year there, it was on the final day of school whether you find out if you make it to the academy or not. And this school had an academy for the last year. And I think it was the 8th grade academy. And if you went to the 8th grade academy, you were pretty much a shoo-in for any high school you wanted to go to.
Okay.
And so my goal was to go to Bronx Science. And I knew that a lot of the kids that went to the 8th grade academy went to Bronx Science. Bronx Science is like a prominent
Yeah.
high school in New York. Like, the people that graduate from Bronx Science go to Yale and Harvard and NYU and all these great schools, right? And so in my brain, I was like, this is it. Like, I'm going to be
You had it. Yeah.
the bomb attorney or whatever it is that I ended up becoming, right? Because let's face it, I could have gone to Bronx Science and fell in love with science. I don't
Yeah.
know, right? And maybe that led me to, I don't know, doctor or chemistry or something like that. And that was the year that my mom pulled me out of New York and brought me to South Florida. And not only did she bring me to South Florida, but she thought she was doing the right thing by moving into the same building as her sister, which ended up putting me at one of the shittiest schools that you could be in Miami. I think I was here for like 2 weeks before I got jumped by a Haitian gang. You know, and I just absolutely hated South Florida. I despised it. I missed New York, even though I had my struggles in New York, but I missed it because it was home. Like,
Yeah.
that's where I grew up, and I hated being here. And I did 9th and 10th grade here. Then I went between 10th and 11th grade. I went to New York for the summer. I used to go every summer, and Hurricane Andrew came and hit and destroyed our house, destroyed everything. And my mom had moved into a FEMA trailer, and that opened up the door for me to stay in New York. So I stayed in New York for 11th grade, and then I got
But
into.
you didn't go to the school that
There
you
was
were
it was
intending to. There's no
impossible.
way.
Like, I ended up going to Roosevelt High School in the Bronx, which is across the street from Fordham U, and that was like leaving the country every day, going through TSA. Like, we had, like, before there was a TSA, there was Roosevelt High School, you know, and Rose had the little belt that you put your book bag in, and you had to walk through a metal detector, and you couldn't carry a. Back then it was a beeper, right? I couldn't have my beeper on me. You can't have weapons, nothing, So it was a nightmare. Honestly, and I'll be honest with you, I did not look at it as a nightmare at the time. Now I look back and I go, what the,
Yeah.
But at the time I was just happy to be home. Like I didn't give a crap. I was
Yeah.
home, and my mom was in Florida and I was there and I was thriving. I went through 11th grade like it was nothing. It was amazing. And then I ended up having to come back home for my senior year. I got into a little fight and
Okay.
and I
fight?
woke up in the hospital with like boot prints in my face and my head, and I got jumped by a local gang.
Oh, wow.
I chose the wrong girl, and and it's a long story, but anyway, after that little hospital visit, my mom was like, "You're coming back to Florida," and I was like, "Why? I'm getting jumped to Florida too." Like, you know what I mean? But I think for my own safety, it was probably a smart thing to do. And I did senior year here, back to hating South Florida, and that just kind of led me to the ultimatum. Like school started to feel further and further and further away. Like university started to evade me. I hated being in school.
I was just going to ask, did you feel like you were at least in any direction to try to aim at that dream?
I mean, I think between 8th and 12th grade, I went to North Miami Middle, then I went to Miami Middle, then I went to Miami High, then I went to Homestead Senior High, and then I went to Roosevelt, New York, and then I went to South Day Senior High School. So I went to 6 schools in 4.5 years.
That's crazy.
Right? And so...
Talk about adjustments.
Yeah, but, I think not great when you're going through it. Made me capable of adjusting easier. I did. I went to South Day Senior High School. Mm-hmm. I dropped out of high school in my senior year because I only needed a credit and a half to graduate. And I was in school all day for no reason. And so I went to my counselor. My counselor said, if you go to South Dade, they have a night school and you can just take the English credit and the government credit, half credit, and you can just graduate. So that's what I did. I formally dropped out of Homestead Senior, and I went to South Dade and I signed up for night school, and I went to night school. And that led me to kind of just being full of shit for a little while until the Marine Corps came in my life.
Okay. I want to talk about that next part of your life. What was your first job?
14 years old, I worked for the New York public school system, delivering mail from the office to the different classrooms in the summer.
And before the military, what was your last job?
I was at Wendy's. Before Wendy's, I was at Ocean Reef Club.
Okay.
I was working on putting covers on boats and wasn't very good at it, so I got fired. And then I ended up at Wendy's in Florida City. Did
you want to go to the military? How did you end up there? Like, what prompted you to go to the military?
Necessity. My friend Sergio, one of my best friends in the whole world, I was living with him at the time. I'd been kicked out of my house. My car got taken away. Like, my mom was tough. And so I was depending on Sergio to help me get to work in school. He had a car, obviously. And I was living with him at his house. His parents had rented us their house. So I was living with him and his brother and his brother's wife. And, it was a bunch of us in the house. And one day he's dropping me off at Wendy's, and I just had a really bad feeling about it, And I walked into the Wendy's. I'm sitting outside with him in the car, and I'm about to get out the car, and I look at him and I go, dude, can you just wait for me right here? And he looks at me and goes, why? And I go, I don't know. I have a bad feeling about today. But I'm working drive-through, so just wait right here. And then when I come to the window and wave at you, then you'll know I'm good. And I'm walking in, I'm early, and the manager comes running to me. She sees me taking my time, but I'm early. And she comes running to me, don't you see we're busy? What the hell, this and that? And I'm like, dude, it's not even time for me to clock in yet, And she starts yelling at me and yelling at me and yelling at me. And I look at her like she's out of her fucking mind. And and I grabbed my headset and everything and I put it down on the counter. And I looked at her, I was like, lady, this is Wendy's. Like, chill. Like, I go next door and work at Burger King. Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, you don't talk to me that way.
You were done.
I was done.
Yeah.
You know? And I went outside and I get in the car. Sergio looks at me. He's like, what just happened? I go, I don't know, bro, but let's go. And right across the street from that Wendy's, not right across the street, but across the street a little further up, right next to the entrance of the highway, there's a little shopping center called Florida Keys Outlets Mall. It's been there a long time. It's an outdoor mall. They have outlet stores like Nike and stuff like that, you know? And I said, let's just go walk around the mall. And we didn't have any money. Like, we're dead broke, you know? I mean, I actually got arrested for stealing food from a supermarket, right? Like, we were broke.
What did you steal?
Hamburger meat. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I was named the Hamburglar after that for a little while by all my friends, but yeah.
You got caught?
And I got caught, and I got locked up for a weekend and whatever. But there was food in the jail, so
you were
it was
okay.
good. Yeah. They had cheese sandwiches and water. And we went to the mall. We're walking up and down the mall, and we're just window shopping, but really not window shopping. We're just kind of talking to each other. And like, you know, I remember thinking to myself, like, this is it. Like, this is who I am, you know? Like, I'm going to be that guy.
That's crazy. You
Yeah.
go from almost going into the best school
Yeah.
to
being like
a dream to be an attorney to just...
You know, I think that the dominoes
Massive
end up
downfall.
falling in place. And if you're not skilled to navigate through life takes control.
Okay.
And at that, I obviously had zero experience, right? I'm 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
You know, so walking and these two Marines walk by opposite. They just kind of cross us. And I didn't know anything about the military. I thought everybody was G.I. Joe. Like, I had no idea what the military was about, you know? I just knew we had one.
Yeah.
And wars happened, right? And it was cool. But Sergio's stepfather was a military guy, Vietnam veteran.
Nice.
And I remember we used to talk about that all the time because his stepfather did. Bernie had PTSD really bad from Vietnam. And so we used to chat about it every once in a while. And so I asked Sergio, I go, hey man, who is that, right? And he goes, oh, those Marines. I was like, damn, dog, they look sharp, you know? And they did. They're just wearing their Delta uniforms, beautiful, you know? And I turn around to look at the guy, and the guy is staring at me with his arms crossed. Like, he had stopped walking, turned around to look at us, and he crossed his arms and he waited. And I turned around, and now I get caught by surprise because he's staring at me. And I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and he goes, you want to talk to me, don't you? And I don't know how that happened, but it happened. And I looked at him and I was like, yeah,
Nice.
Why not? You know, and we went to the recruiting station and we talked and we learned about the Marine Corps, and I learned what I had to do, make sure that I got my high school diploma. I don't think at the time I was done with night school yet. So I had to have my high school diploma. I had to take the ASVAB. There were things that I had to do to join, and I just fully committed. And I remember thinking to myself, this is what I need. Like, this is the one thing I need. I need to get out of this neighborhood. I don't want to go back to New York. I don't know where else to go. I have zero skills. Like, I need this, you know? And so I did it.
Did you feel that you had the skills to be in the military?
Zero skills. And it never worked out. I never ran anywhere. You know, I don't think I ever did a pull-up in my life until I went to the military.
You struggled with a sickness.
I struggled with rheumatoid arthritis. There was so much stuff, you know, that I had going on that no way in the world, never shot a gun before like that. Like, you know, there's no way in the world that I thought I was made for the military.
Yeah.
Sergio, on the other hand, was completely designed for military service.
Yeah, I've heard the stories.
But I didn't. I like the one thing the recruiter assured us was, don't worry. Like in boot camp, it's programmed to create you.
Okay.
And I just remember thinking that and going, okay, well, if I'm going to be in their hands and they're going to make me better, be awesome. Yeah. I think I went into boot camp weighing like 185 pounds, like just enough to get in, and I graduated boot camp weighing 135 pounds.
Holy smokes.
I looked like, in 3 months, like I looked like Skeletor. It was a bag of bones,
Now, I want to dive deeper into your military experience, because I feel like that has created who you are and the way you go about things. And I know you had struggles in the military as well, financial struggles in the military. How old did you go into the military? Like, how old were you?
I was 19.
Okay.
I was 19 when I left. I had just like, my birthday's in June, and I think I left in July, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
And
so
soon after that, you became a parent.
I did, about a year later.
How was your experience as a parent, a young parent in the military back then?
So difficult. First of all, you're a new Marine. You have no rights. You have no rank. You have nothing. I was a PFC. I think I was a Lance Corporal when she was born. It's an E3. That's nothing. That's like bottom of the barrel, caca. Like, there's nothing there for you, know? And so your commitment is to the Corps, so wherever the Corps needs you, that's where you are. It's not to your family, that you hear things like God, country, Corps, right? Like, where's the family at? Yeah. It's not there. It's when people leave the military that they think of it differently, then they start saying God, family, country, but it's not a priority. And so it was very difficult to be a young parent in the military, and also a young parent in general. I was broke as a joke.
Yeah.
I think I still have a W-2 from like my second year in the military. I made a whopping almost $12,000 that year or something like that,
You had mentioned your interest in helping others. Did something from the military create that?
So, we do the Toys for Tots thing. Mm-hmm. We're always working on helping, like we have the charity events that we do. We're always working on helping somebody else. And I think a lot of that stems from growing up with no money, to being a young parent with no money, to being who we are today, right? Which is a big difference than anything I've ever lived in my life. And when Olivia was born, which is, my oldest, for you guys, my oldest. When Olivia was born, she was born December 8th. And the holidays were right there, We had nothing. We had no tree, no presents. We had a couch, no chairs, no dining table. We had a couple things for the kitchen. We barely had Pampers for the baby. Like every penny went to the baby, like went to Olivia. We had a mattress on the floor. We had some sheets, a couple towels. I think we were sharing a towel, and then the baby had a towel. Oh. We were boiling hot water to have clean water. Like, that was a very difficult time, I remember sitting in my living room in the dark. I can vividly remember this, sitting in my living room in the dark on the couch, Olivia in my arms. I had this little dusty mustache at the time. And I remember my ex-wife, Jeanette, sitting down on the same couch on the other seat. And I remember just thinking to myself, what am I doing here? You know, like why this? And one day I go to work and I'm in the armory. I work inside of an armory, and Master Gunnery Sergeant, who runs the armory, you know, he calls me to the front, which when you're a young Lance Corporal and Master Guns calls you to the front office, you're freaking out, right? Like you're like, bro, why does this guy want to talk to me? You know, like usually messages come down, like shit rolls downhill in the military, right? So, like, you know, if there was something to be said to me, it would have been said to my sergeant, then he would have came and knocked it into my head for me.
So
But he called me to the front.
Yeah.
It was unprecedented. He had no reason to call me up there. And I go up there and he says, hey, I need you to report to Headquarters Marine Corps and take this with you. And so I jump in my car at the time. I remember it was a Saturn SL, brand new. It's like $60 a month. And I was struggling to pay that. And it was like, you know, best deal I could get, roll up windows, the whole nine, you know. And I go to Headquarters Marine Corps and I'm looking at the office number and I'm walking to the office number. And I said, hi, you know, I was told to report here. Some ladies are in there and it turns out they're all volunteers, probably spouses. And she goes, yeah, let me see your paper. And she looks at it and she goes, oh, okay, wait right here. She comes back with 2 garbage bags, like those Home Depot black garbage bags. And she hands them to me and she goes, this is for you. Don't open it here. Take it home. Right? So now I'm like, what is this? You know? So I like pick up the bags. They're heavy as hell. And I put them in the car and I drive home and my ex-wife is at the house and say, hey, come help me with these bags, whatever. I bring them in the house and it was the most phenomenal moment I can remember on why the Marine Corps is the Marine Corps. And it was baby clothes, baby bottles. It was Pampers, pots, pans. I think we got an iron, just like necessities to fucking live, to have a baby in the house. Bottle warmer, things that I thought that were out of our reach, you know? And this is anonymous. Nobody knows who's going to give that to you, you know? And to get those, that like changed our whole holiday and it changed our ability to take care of the baby. And
That's awesome.
all of a sudden things started coming together, you know, just kind of like somebody donates a crib or, you know, a bassinet or something like that. And people come together and start helping you out, you know? And I remember receiving that help. And so now in my life, I feel like I have to give that kind of help. Like I have to, you know? I have to give back to the world because the world gave to me when I needed the most. And that was probably one of the most impactful times of my life because for the first time ever in my life, I'm in charge of feeding another human being.
Yeah.
You know, like that's, for a young parent, man, that's
a lot.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
You know? And so that was, you know, it was impressive. It was emotional. I still get emotional about it, as you can see. My daughter Olivia had, not because I was capable of doing it, but because I was around the right environment.
Yeah.
You know, Marine Corps did that for me.
That's awesome. I want to touch on family now and religion. With your family, you had support growing up, I presume, for the most part. But what was your relationship with your mom?
I think growing up, I had a good relationship with my mom, but she was very tough. Very tough. I mean, I didn't get grounded for a weekend. I got grounded for like 30 days, you know? I got my ass whooped when I needed it. You know, I'm okay with that. Like even till today, you know, none of that stuff bothers me. But I think she took away a lot of my childhood. So there's some good and bad and ugly, and I don't blame her. You know, she was a young parent herself. Yeah. You know, I think she had me when she was 20 or 21.
Yeah.
You know, what does she know? She's trying to raise a man in the Bronx. You know.
Did you have a man in your life?
I had my stepfather. But my stepfather was like, he's like the sweetest guy in the world, but he is old school. You know, he woke up really early, went to work, worked all day, came back from work, he took a shower, he put on his little wife beater and his little cargo shorts, he came out to eat, and he went to bed. You know, and occasionally on the weekends we would hang out. You know, he'd take me out to throw a baseball around or shoot some hoops. You know, he used to drive me all the way to New Jersey to do that because he wouldn't take me to any of the parks in the Bronx.
What about your biological dad?
He wasn't around. He wasn't around. I found out who my biological father was when I was 28 years old, and I met him when I was 29 years old.
Did you feel like you missed who your biological dad was when you were younger?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I cry about it. You can't be a young man and understand why your father is not around. It's very difficult. It makes you angry. It makes you bitter. It makes you question your validity as a child, right? What did you do wrong?
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, so I did miss out on a lot. And it is, even to this day, no matter how much you've grown or how much you try to forgive or any of that matter, it's still very frustrating, right? Could have been so different.
Yeah.
And maybe it would have been horrible.
Yeah.
But at least he would have been there. I would have had something to blame the horrible on. You know, right now I live in a world of not knowing. Yeah. So I choose to just kind of look forward instead of looking back, you know?
Did he explain why he wasn't around?
He said he didn't know. He didn't know I existed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What's your relationship with him now? Much
better. We've known each other for 20 years now. Right? Yeah. I'm 49 years old. We've known each other for 20 years. We've had our ups and downs. You know, we've had our trying to figure out what this relationship is supposed to be. You know, because you can't be told that you have a son and he's 29 years old already and try to become the instant father. It's impossible because you're not trusted yet. You could come from a good place. It's irrelevant. Doesn't matter, you know?
Yeah.
And so because of that, you know, I know him and I had some like hiccups, you know? We had some tough times and we had some hiccups and we had some trying to understand what this relationship really was. And yeah, I think for the most part, we figured it out the best way we could. We figured it out. And now we have a relationship, you know? And
right now, you're Jewish and your father's Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the reason why you became Jewish?
Yeah, huge part. I mean, I don't want to say he's the reason. I want to say I'm the reason I became Jewish. Or started to focus on it because let's face it, bloodline, I'm Jewish, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I am Jewish. But the reason I started to commit to Judaism had everything to do with me. But without him, I wouldn't have known it existed that way. So he played an instrumental part in helping me realize my faith, you know, by going to his house for Passover, yeah, or spending, you know, Hanukkah with him, or, you know, those holidays and understanding them. And him, you know, my dad is a storyteller, you know.
Like you?
Yeah. And so, you know, he likes to explain and I like to listen.
Yeah.
You know, and I like to know about it. And I think prior to him, I didn't have much faith. I lost faith.
Why'd
I
you lose
lost
faith?
faith. I lost faith when I was in the Marine Corps. I lost faith with losing people. I lost faith in this world when you see things the way you see them when you're, from the eyes of which people only watch on the news. One or two things happens to military members. They either A, lose faith and just kind of go on with life, or B, become extra focused on faith. Like they become extra, like they're looking for it. I need this because if not, shit's gonna go wrong, right? I went the agnostic way. I just kind of fell into a position where I decided I wasn't gonna follow a religion. I went to Catholic school when I was a kid. Elementary school was Catholic school. My mom became a Christian, so followed the Christian for a little bit. Then eventually I was just like, why? I don't, you hear me say this a lot, like, be the lion, not the sheep,
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like a sheep always following around these churches and like doing what they say you got to do and singing when they sing and like, praising the way they praise. And I didn't like that at all. So I just kind of decided I'm going to believe in God, believe that there's something bigger and stronger and in charge. But I'm not going to follow any faith. I'm not going to.
So it wasn't.
I'm not going to fall into the trap of anything.
It wasn't anything that happened to you in the military or anything like that.
Yes and no.
Do you have PTSD?
I do. I do.
How does it affect you?
I don't sleep well. A lot of nightmares. Have anxiety. Take a lot of medications. I lost faith for a very long time. Had trouble with relationships, people, environments. I don't like being in crowded places. I don't like loud noises. I can't even hear that well, and I don't like loud noises, So it affects me on a daily basis.
You said you had trouble with relationships. I do know you had multiple relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that was?
They say 3's a charm, but I believe in lucky number 4. I think I kept choosing people for the wrong reasons to be in my life. I think I kept thinking that I needed somebody in my life.
Were you searching for something?
Partnership, somebody to be there. For a very long time, I didn't like being alone. Now I do. Like now I found peace in being by myself. But for a very long time, I hated being alone. So I wanted somebody to be there. And I think I chose people for the wrong reasons.
Now, I want to go back to Judaism. They say, or there's a part of Judaism where, your mom is the one that has to be Jewish and this and that, and you didn't grow up in it. Do you feel like you belong?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Have you ever felt like you don't belong?
I don't listen to that.
Somewhere?
I think Judaism has done what most religions have done, where they've created kind of different levels of it, right?
Yeah. Like
you can be a Reformed Catholic, you can be a conservative Catholic, you can be an Orthodox Catholic, like to the extreme,
mm-hmm.
right? Or extremist. Same thing as Muslims,
mm-hmm.
right? You can be an extremist, or you could be a moderate, or you could be a conservative, and Jews have really taken that on, realize that the more people become Jewish or are born under the Jewish flag, the more personalities fall into place. And so, of course, we have Orthodox Jews, and we have conservative Jews, and we have Reformed Jews, and we have liberal Jews, and,
You would fall under.
I think I'm somewhere between conservative and Reformed.
Okay.
There are certain things that I believe that fall within the Reformed Jew, but there are also other things that I'm hardcore about that are very conservative.
What does being Jewish mean to you? Like, why is it even important?
It means, it's a good question. It means that I have a faith to follow. I like Judaism because there's not a lot of hocus pocus in Judaism. You know, there's no saints and angels and this and that and la 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 la. There's the first 5 books of the Bible that Moses brought down from, you know, from the mountain, and that's it. You know, went up Sinai, came back with 5 books, and that's it. And that's what Jews believe. You know, I've never really been a subscriber to Jesus is God. You know, I think God is God, and Jesus was an incredible human being on this planet, but he was not God. Like, that's how I always thought about it. And so Judaism falls more into my morale and my belief and how I think. And I also love that Judaism is very family focused. And I love that. Like, you know, it's taught me to be more about family than I ever was or ever knew existed, because the family that you and I have, I didn't grow up that way. You did. Yeah. I didn't, you know? And I'm trying to create this from like the air, you know? And trying to get the kids to buy in on it and praying and hoping that it gets stuck on them so that they keep coming home even when they're older to enjoy Shabbat with us on Fridays and the holidays and then like when we're no longer on this planet, when we become dust, they miss it and so they do it. Yeah. Right? Or they find men, you know, we have 4 girls, so they find men who are family focused and family oriented and desire that and want that, you know, and that's kind of what I want to leave that as a family legacy. That's the legacy I want to leave behind. And so I love that about Judaism. And also, there's only 2 places in the world where I feel at home. And Miami's not one of them. I love Miami. I love living here. And I love all the opportunity that Miami brings, but it's not home. New York feels like home for about 3 days. And then on day 4, I'm just kind of like, why am I still here? This is miserable, right? Puerto Rico. You know, when I land in Puerto Rico and I'm in Puerto Rico, I could stay in Puerto Rico forever. And it just, I'm home. Yeah. I feel the people, I feel the vibe, I feel the rhythm of the island, like all of that stuff. I know it. It's familiar. It feels good. First time I went to Israel, I stepped foot in Tel Aviv, and I was home. It's the only place I've ever visited that was foreign to me, that I had never been to before, that I had zero connection with growing up, right? Because when I went there, I had already known about my father, right? Like, when did I go there? Like 8 years ago, something like that, 9 years ago.
2016.
Yeah, and you know, when I went, I'd already met my father and I already understood that, you know, Judaism was in my blood and so forth and so on. I didn't know what to expect when I went to Tel Aviv. I thought, you know, everybody was going to be walking around in black clothes with the little curlies and like, you know, and it wasn't like that at all. It was like a super hip, thriving, exciting city, and people were having fun, and they were at the bars, and they were, you know, the restaurants were incredible, and the hotel was awesome. And I happened to also be there during Passover, and my father introduced me to one of his best friends that lives in Israel, and they picked me up for Passover dinner, and I enjoyed a real Israeli Jewish Passover, right, with his family. And all of that was so impactful. And I just felt like these are my people. Yeah. And I think I'm lucky. I think there's so many people in life that go through life and they don't realize, they never feel like they belong somewhere, or they never feel like they've taken their piece of the puzzle and attached it to the larger platform. Like, I have felt that twice. I'm lucky to have felt that twice. I know I belong in Puerto Rico. I know I belong in Israel. And I can't wait to get back. Like, itching, crawling skin, like, to get back and see it, and to take you. Yeah. And to take the kids. I'm a little
jealous I didn't make it that one time.
Yeah. And you know, man, I was so lucky. I mean, it was a company trip, but was there 15 days. I got
Yeah.
to network and speak to a lot of people, and I got to do Passover. I mean, so many things I got to do, eat the food and drink and enjoy the city and see the Dead Sea and, you know, pray on the Wailing Wall. And, you know, and I remember calling you. I was in a hotel. I think on the 15th floor of this hotel, there's a restaurant for only people at the higher level floors, right? Like it's a VIP thing. And I would go there for breakfast and lunch sometimes. And I remember calling you from there. We weren't married yet. And I remember saying to you, I would really like to get married as a Jew.
Yeah.
I remember saying that to you. Like, I was like,
remember that.
these are my people, babe. Like, you know, this is how and where I belong. And I feel connected for the first time in a long time. And that was incredible to me. That feeling is insane. And
I was personally happy that you felt that way, because I was always been faith-driven. But there's nothing better than having the man of the household to also be faith-driven. It really creates a movement in the home.
And I know that was tough for us when we first started
Yeah.
dating seriously. Like, you were very faith-driven. You were Christian. You would go to church. You'd take the girls. And I was not about it. Like, I stayed away from it. But you know, here we are.
Yeah.
You know, Jewish family.
I want to talk about the girls.
What about them?
We have 4 girls.
Yes.
2 biologically yours, 2 biologically mine. You know,
4 all mine.
4 are yours. You sometimes struggle with being a step-parent.
It's tough.
Yeah. And as well as...
All new appreciation for my stepfather. And all stepfathers out there, by the way.
Do you feel different as a step-parent? As in... I mean, I guess I really don't know how to phrase this. You know, as a step-parent, it's like you're a parent, but you're kind of like on the sideline.
You're a parent, but you're not a parent.
Yeah.
Like, you're just crossing your fingers, hoping that one day you don't hear the words, "You're not my father anyway." Right?
Yeah. And then there's also, you had your biological daughters, but they also lived away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me your feelings about you as a parent, from the beginning as a parent to you who you want to be a parent now.
I think that's where I struggle the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I do my best now.
Mm-hmm.
But I struggle with, you know, my biological daughters didn't get a lot of me. They always lived in a different state. So they got summers and they got holidays and things like that. But they didn't get me, like, I wasn't available every other weekend, or one week in, 1 week out, or, you know, hey, Dad, can I come over for the weekend? Like, that just didn't exist, right? Like, it couldn't happen because we were in different states. And I was here in South Florida, and they were wherever they were living, because their mom moved around a lot. And I remember really trying to define who I am here, right? Like, when I had a job, so I was also limited. When I became an entrepreneur, I'm also limited, because now you're working twice as much as you did when you had a job. And people think that when you first become an entrepreneur, you're already thinking that you get to choose your own schedule and things like that. And that's bullshit, right? Like, you're working, instead of 40 hours a week, you're working 100 hours a week, trying to make it happen. Because if you don't make it happen, there's no guaranteed paycheck on the 1st and the 15th of each month. Like, it's just not happening. And they were growing up while I was trying to create that. And so even when they did visit, I had to go to work, or we would take a break and I would over spoil them, right? We would go to Disney, or I would spend a lot of money on them, because I thought that's what I needed to do, because I had limited time with them. So when I had limited time with them, you know, I had to over spoil them. I had to buy them new clothes and buy them new things and, you know, do all this stuff. And that was wrong. That was not the right way to do it, but I didn't know any better, you know? And if you fast forward to today, I have stepdaughters. I have 100% of me. That's something that my kids didn't get. But also they got me in a different phase of my life. You know, I have multiple thriving businesses. Like, yes, I work a lot, but definitely not the way I used to work before. Yes, I travel a lot more, but I'm also in tune and in touch with them. It's much easier now. We text each other, call each other. You know, right now as we're doing this interview, they're in another country, and I chat with them every single day.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they got a different version of me than my kids were able to get. So it's a struggle because the ones that are mine and should have been the easy shoe-in love bugs, right, grew up with some sort of animosity towards me. And I think that they still hold that animosity. And I know they love me very much, but deep down inside, there's some childhood anger there, you know? And unfortunately, they don't know the truth, the reality, or the whole story. And until they wear my shoes, they'll never understand it.
And they'll know.
And neither one of them are parents either, so they don't even know what that's like yet.
Yeah.
You know? And then the little ones who get 100% of me, and I try to show up to every volleyball game and every event and every school situation or whatever I'm in town for and I'm able to go to, which is like 95% of the time, I'm present and able, and I'm fighting to have Friday night dinners with them and, like, you know, communicate with them and talk to them. And, you know, they don't know what it's like to not have me. And they're also still my stepkids. They have a dad, and I'm never going to live up to what their dad is. And, you know, and so it's a consistent trying to make sure I do the best job I can do so that I become an example of relevance in their lives rather than just a stepdad, right?
Yeah.
So I think stepdads have to work 4 times as hard,
Yeah.
you know, to be relevant.
Step-parents, yeah.
You know?
You know, in the process of talking about your kids, you mentioned you working really hard and being super busy, and you are so many things right now. You wear so many hats right now. My biggest question to you is, it's a 2-part question. Why real estate, and what did it do for you now?
I don't know why real estate. You know, when I got out of the Marine Corps and I went to go visit my cousin Serena, and Serena was living in a fancy building in Miami Beach and driving a BMW or a Mercedes or one of those things. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, like, she's rich, you know, like, you know, I just left the military. Like, you know, none of us were like that in the military, you know, and I come to see her and she's doing great. She's in the mortgage industry and so forth and so on. I was like, yo, I want to do what you're doing. And she looks at me, she goes, mortgage is not for you. She said, you're talkative, you can connect with people, you need to be out and about, become a realtor. And I became a realtor. She was the one that encouraged me to be a realtor. I was working at a company called Corpac Steel Products in Aventura as a job. And I was doing real estate part-time, and a guy named George Waldenberg hired me simply because I was a Marine. He told me in the interview, he goes, you have zero skill for what we're looking for, but I believe and trust that you'll show up every day and do the best you can do based on your Marine Corps history. And I did. I mean, I kicked butt at that job. Like, it was sales, you know? And George and his brother Idel, they ran the company and they taught sales. They taught me sales, right? Like the most basic levels, but it was enough to get work done. And I was making 6 figures, and it was like the most money I'd ever made in my life. And I'm driving a Cadillac, and I'm living in a penthouse, and like the whole nine, you know? And one day the sales manager position opens up because the gentleman that was the sales manager, he just kind of got grandfathered in, like he was their first sales guy. And he was retiring. He was an older guy, and he was like, "Dude, I'm done," you know. And I was like, "I want your office." Right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
Moving on.
I was a great salesperson. I was probably one of the best ones on the floor, you know. And I say on the floor because Idel and his George, they were the monsters, right? Like, been doing this their whole lives. Their father was in the steel business, you know. And I sat with George and I told him I wanted that office, I wanted that position, I wanted to help other people become better. And he said no. He said, "I can't take you off the floor." He said, "First, we're looking for somebody with sales managerial experience. Second, you make too much money on the floor. Like, you're going to lose money going into the sales manager position. You know, we're all going to lose money." And I didn't like those answers. That was the day that I realized that there was no opportunity for growth. I was going to be a sales guy forever. And I didn't want that. So when I got back to my cubicle, it instantly started to feel like a coffin. And so I started doing real estate more. And so I lived in Homestead. I worked in Aventura. My drive there was about, you know, anywhere between 60 and 90 minutes, depending on traffic. And so I would leave my house. I would wake up at 4 in the morning, leave my house by 5, be in the gym at 6 in North Miami. Went to the LA Fitness on 163rd, I think it was. And worked out there, took a shower there, got ready for work there, went to the office, did some real estate stuff in the kitchen on my laptop. When it was time to work, I worked. When I had a break, I was doing real estate stuff. When I got off at the end of the day, I would go to the Starbucks in Aventura Mall, not the one at the mall, but there's one in front of it, standalone building. And I would work there as long as I needed to avoid traffic. Then I would go show some houses if possible. I would get home at 10, 11 o'clock at night. I would do whatever paperwork, marketing, communication, emails that I needed to do that day. Go to sleep around midnight, wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning the next day and do it all over again.
Okay.
And eventually real estate became the full-time position. It took me 2 months to put 6 figures together. And I was able to leave the job, and I've been in real estate ever since.
And I know you went through some struggles, and I believe we only have maybe like 10 more minutes left. You went through some struggles along the way in your real estate career. So I know that you were in real estate, you had your team. Then we had the brokerage. We did that for 3 years. And then there were other transitions. And in that transition, during some of the hardest times of, during COVID, we went through a lawsuit. How was that for you?
It was depressing.
What did it do to you?
It destroyed me mentally, physically, financially. Obviously, you know that. I was having mental breakdowns. I felt like I couldn't take care of my family. And I felt like there was nothing for me to do. And I think because I crashed so hard mentally, I didn't realize that there was other ways I could have made money.
Yeah.
I probably could have, like, turned back the time, but I wanted to be in my industry. And that lawsuit took me out of our industry. It took me out of real estate. I had an injunction against me for the year. The lawsuit was a complete BS lawsuit. The whole thing was a lie. But that's irrelevant because once you're served, you got to fight it either way. And it was during COVID, so everything took 10 times as long to fight in a court on Zoom.
Yeah.
And it was tens of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees or hundreds of thousands probably. I'm sure we broke $100,000 in attorney fees. And it was terrible. It was terrible. And I remember even contemplating committing suicide because I thought to myself that if I was out of the picture, then all of this would go away. And I remember leaving the VA hospital once and having a panic attack. And actually, like, I'm Jewish and they don't have a Jewish temple, so I sat in the church in the hospital. And I tried to pray and it wasn't working. And I got in my car and that wasn't working. And I called the suicide hotline and they put me on hold. And And a little miracle happened. You know, I was trying to drive home, couldn't make it. I pulled over into the parking lot of a building on the river, in the Miami River. And I just parked the car and I started crying. I grabbed my gun, and I was really going to commit suicide and be done. And I sent a email. You know, it's like, I think people who want to commit suicide or are attempting to commit suicide really don't want to commit suicide. So they reach out in subtle ways, asking for help without asking for help.
Yeah.
And I reached out to my VA therapist by email because I knew that she rarely answers emails. And the suicide hotline had put me on hold for so long. By the time they picked up, I didn't want to talk to them anymore. And I sent her an email and I said, hey, I really need help. And I'm sitting in my car, gun in my hand, pissed off at the world, frustrated, angry. And my therapist calls me a minute later. I remember seeing her phone number and name show up on the screen. And I picked up the phone and she goes, what's wrong? And she talked me down.
Well,
and she
glad
got
she
me
did.
home. And I remember hyper focusing on trying to get home that day. And then I remember walking into the house. And you didn't really know what was going on, but when you saw me, you gave me a big hug, as you always do.
Yeah.
And all the pain melted away. And I think that was the first time, not the first time, but I think that was the most prolific time that I realized that you had saved my life.
Sorry.
Let's say you try to get me to cry, but you're crying.
Yeah, sorry. You know, it's hard because you don't really know. So I'm glad you're still here because I don't know how life would have been without.
I'm glad I'm still here too.
Yeah. Things are certainly much better. I mean, after that, you finished writing your book, Failure, which has a lot to do with all your struggles. You know, not a lot of people go through struggles and make it out and make good with it, you know? And, you know, you did the book, The Blueprint, you did the book, Take Action, but Failure was really your most personal book, even though it included business. What was it about failure that was important?
I think I got to, and to be honest with you, now when I go back and flip through it, I wish I would have went deeper.
Yeah.
I wish I would have went in more. So I think there's going to be a Failure Volume 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I want to write another book, but I want to write a second volume where I get to go in a little bit deeper and speak a little bit more and touch a few more hearts. Failure allowed me to wear my heart on my sleeve. Yeah. And
what do you want failure to do for others?
Well, the book is called The Truth About Failure, right? It says it's failure and it says the truth about failure. And the truth about failure is that it's not existent unless you allow it to become existent. And that's one thing that I've learned in my life, no matter how many problems I've had or what we call hiccups in the book, there's always success on the other side if you just keep going.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, if I would have committed suicide, that would have been a failure.
Yeah.
If I had quit on anything that I was working on, that would have been a failure, you know? Yeah. I think I did fail when we were sued and I got pushed out of the business and I didn't know what to do. I think I did fail because I mentally quit. I didn't know what to do. And I know there's a lot to that and we could talk about that for a much longer time, but ideally what was important is I wish I would have been able to see, like, okay, I can't do this, but let me go do something else.
Yeah.
There's
I
so
think
many
at
ways
that
to make
point,
money in this world.
yeah.
I could have done something else.
I think at that point you were just afraid of having to show weakness, show that you're trying something different, you
Yeah.
know, and that certainly happens.
And that's
you know?
tough. You know, public perception was difficult. We lost friends in the process. Friends turned their backs on us.
Yeah.
Even friends that knew everything about our everyday work and knew that nothing he was saying could ever possibly be true turned their backs on us.
Yeah. That was definitely hard.
So, you know, those pieces, you know, it's a tough childhood, tough parent. Marine Corps was tough. You know, all of this stuff, you know, the business is tough. Lawsuit was tough. Training jobs was tough. Being married 4 times is tough. Not having your kids around is tough. Raising stepkids is tough. Like all of this stuff is tough. Life is not designed to be easy.
Kind of hard, yeah.
You know, life is designed to test you, to see if you're willing to put in the work.
Yeah. Well, and you certainly did. You know, in every aspect. I'll say that you do everything for us. You know, and you do it as best as you can, right? That's all you can really do. Now your business has fast forward and you're in a different realm of your business. Can you just briefly kind of mention the different things that you're doing? And then I have one last question for you, and then I'm going to release you from this.
So I'm super blessed because one of the things I am is loyal, and in business specifically, I want to talk about that. I am loyal, and because of that, I've been able to build these really long-term relationships over 20 years of selling real estate. And so we still, you know, one of the things that we do is we operate our real estate team here in South Florida. Connected to that is being a part of LPT Realty and attracting agents around the world and having conversations. Just had an amazing conversation yesterday with someone in Israel and looking to launch Israel. You know, so many different opportunities there. So I do hyper focus on growing that as well. My next amazing project is that I'm a partner at New World Title. I partnered in Texas, and we've opened up 4 offices in the state of Texas with 3 more in the horizon before the end of the year.
Exciting.
And so I have a 5-year plan for what Texas looks like for New World Title, you know. Most recently, I created an alliance with PRMG, or mortgage company, where you're licensed to be sort of a national area manager. And my only job is to attract potential branch offices around the country and expand this office into other offices around the country. So I've been able to do that with 3 different people already. You know, and I'm looking to continue to expand that out, either create branch offices or hire people to do business development for us in different states, things of that nature. So it's another focus I have. We recently signed up with Legal Shield.
Yeah.
I love Legal Shield. I've already used them, you know, as a monthly subscription thing. But more importantly, you know, I feel like we're in a business where we help people transfer the largest asset of their lives, and very few of them have wills and trusts and, you know, attorneys on tap, right? It's an expensive thing. Trust me, we know when we went through a lawsuit, it was a very expensive thing. So to have an attorney on call to do some of the most basic things or help you with the most basic tasks, I think is incredible. So I want to bring that and implement it into our businesses as well. And then, you know, for the last 11 years or so, I've been coaching real estate agents and hosting events and masterminds and conferences around the country. We've got a great conference on December 5th in New York with Tom Ferry that we put together with New World Title. It's called the New You Real Estate Conference. We're working on doing a real talk variation where we're going to show people how to create multiple incomes.
Nice.
So that's another thing that we're working on. That'll be a webinar type event.
Okay.
So, you know, a lot of great stuff in the making, a lot of great stuff happening.
Not a lot of people can handle that much, but you're
No.
definitely making it through. We obviously got pretty personal We spoke about your business as well. I want this last question to be for the audience that's listening in. And I want to ask you, in a world where everyone is falling victim of their past and are trying to follow a narrative, what would you say is wrong with the world, and what do you think they should do?
I think that the world is forgetting what the family unit really means. And we need to change that narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Less people are wanting to have kids and create families today. I think that's a horrible thing.
Yeah.
More people are fighting with their parents. I think that's a horrible thing.
Mm.
For the history of mankind, children have always been pissed off at their parents, okay? But most recently, we're seeing a lot more separation. And so, the Bible says, thou shalt honor thy father and thy mother. I went on an ayahuasca journey a couple months ago, and that was super enforced and enlightened in my head during that process. And I think more people need to find forgiveness for their parents, because I think parents do the best that they could do with the tools that they have in front of them. And when you become a parent, you realize that more than ever, right? My mom did the best she could do with the tools that she had in the area that we lived, with the amount of money that she had, et cetera, right? My stepfather, same thing. My father didn't know me till I was 29 years old. He's doing the best he can do to be a dad now, right?
Yeah.
I think everybody's playing their part. And when you start to predetermine what that's supposed to look like, you're setting yourself up for failure, and you're setting yourself up for disappointment. And so what I wish that would change, the number one thing that I think should change in the world today, that I think would be a world phenomenon and relationships would change completely, is we should become more in tune and more focused with our parents and really communicate with them. And we should, as a parent, learn how to let go of our kids when it's time to let go of them, so that they can also do what the Bible says, which is, you shall leave your parents and you shall, I forget the word that's used, but you should connect with your wife and allow them the opportunity to now go create their family unit and imply on their kids family values and morale and things like that, and have kids.
Yeah.
Even if it's one or two, just have kids again, and raise them to become good people, and then allow them to do the same thing, to create family units and raise them to have good people. I think we're missing that today.
I agree.
I think there's way too much separation amongst family, and these new sayings like, to be family, it doesn't need to be blood, and sometimes blood is not your family. Get that out of your head, man. Yes, I understand. We have friends that are family to us.
Yeah.
But blood is blood. Blood is blood. I grew up even though we didn't have a strong family unit growing up, I grew up on the phrase, blood is thicker than water.
Yeah.
And family, man, as family, you could have fights but at the end of the day, it's still family.
Yeah.
My brother and I have disagreements on different things throughout our lives. It's still my brother. Yeah. So my brother calls me today and says, like that movie Town, they always play the clip on Instagram where he's like, hey, I need your help. I can't tell you where we're going. I can't tell you what we're going to do, but we're going to hurt some people. And the guy's like, whose car are we taking? Like, that's how I feel about my brother, right? Awesome. Like, if he needs me, I'm there.
Yeah, I certainly think that that's definitely missing. And I think that's a great point. I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the time and the energy it took for you to be here and go through these questions. I know it's very difficult to go through personal stuff. I'm honored to be able to do this, to interview my own husband and try to pull out of him more than he's willing to share. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Jen's on the Reel. We'll have more interview segments. And also, please subscribe to David Adam Kurz. This will also air there. And we thank you so much for your time and for watching us this far along. And I hope this was helpful to you. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Welcome to the David Adam Kurz Show.